Hi there, my name is Jennifer Kraus, and I'm an associate professor at the University of Northern Colorado. And I'm here today with Tess Armstrong, and she's going to talk to us about geocaching. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Tess Armstrong. I am an assistant professor at Grand Valley State University, and I teach in the health and physical education program. So a lot of our classes for our future health and physical education teachers.
Great. So could you just start by telling us what is geocaching?
Yeah, geocaching, the way I describe it, it's basically a giant scavenger hunt. It's a global scavenger hunt. So you use technology, and I'll explain that a little bit later, to find these treasures that are hidden all over, probably in your neighborhood right now, and you don't even know that it's there. I could go really in depth on what geocaching is, but I guess for the purpose of today, I'm going to give you the basics on getting started with geocaching and why I think it's important for you to try it out in your current PE program.
Wonderful. So why would someone consider teaching geocaching in physical education?
So this is my philosophy. We know that the purpose of physical education is really to promote this idea of lifetime physical fitness, lifetime physical activity. And geocaching is one of those activities that you can do over a lifetime. So this picture that you can see on my screen right now, this is my first time geocaching with my daughters. And my mom, and my sister. So it was 3 generations of us out geocaching in Canada. So I was on a trip to visit my family. So what I like about geocaching is that it's pretty accessible for a lot of people. And I'll talk about accessibility levels a little bit later too. You can do it with your kiddos as young as pre-K all the way up through 12th grade. And then you can sort of get students interested and hooked on this idea of hiking as fitness and getting outside and enjoying the outdoors as fitness that lasts for a lifetime.
Let's talk a little bit more about equipment. So what equipment or software is needed, in terms of like using this for teaching? What would be needed for the teacher, and what equipment or software is needed for the students in physical education?
The basic equipment you need, I use my phone. I have a smartphone, I use my phone, and I downloaded the app on my phone for me to use as an individual. And I know that's not really feasible in a physical education class. So how I've seen it done, at our university where I teach, we have access to GPS units. So our students can learn to use these GPS units, because when you're geocaching, basically you get these GPS coordinates and you navigate to these GPS coordinates. And when you get within about 30 feet or so of where this treasure is hidden, you just search the area like a scavenger hunt. So you can teach your students to use GPS units. You can also use tablets if you have access to tablets in your PE program. So if you can download the geocaching app, then you can go out. One of the regulations of geocaching is that you can't hide a cache on a school property. But I know that there are some schools in the area around, I'm in Michigan, so there are some schools in the area here who have like big forested areas in the back that have geocaches there, or I've visited schools that have caches placed in the front of their school. So if you have GPS units or tablets, that's really all you need.
So how do you get started teaching geocaching?
Just talking about geocaching in your PE program, and I have links here that you can go navigate to if you would like. But how I would start would be just basic orienteering. So if you go to the geocaching.com website, they talk about sample ways to talk to students about like cardinal directions and basic map reading skills before you actually go out and start geocaching. So talking about orienteering, there's some links here, some really cool resources that some of my students have used at Grand Valley when they've done orienteering units for their elementary students, talking to your students about basic how to use trails and like leave no trace training. So I talk to students about first, what is geocaching? We talk about some vocabulary. So what does a cache mean? So the cache is the actual box that the treasure is hidden in. Some students like Harry Potter, and in geocaching, they use the term muggles to refer to non-geocachers. So we kind of get familiar with the language of geocaching, something that young kids like, and a lot of this talk today will be geared toward elementary kiddos, is I have them build caches. So we'll take some basic Rubbermaid Tupperware containers, and we'll talk about what you usually find in a geocache. So there's always a logbook. So when you find a geocache, you're really excited, you open it up and there's a logbook inside, so you can write down your name, your geocaching name. You can create something really fun. There's a pen, and there's usually a bunch of trinkets inside, like a little eraser, or it could be something really cool. My kiddos found some dollar bills the other day, and they were really excited to find dollar bills in the cache. So just starting to do that in your PE program. So if you could build a cache, what would you put inside it? And let's look in these geocaches and what can't you put inside them? So things like food you don't put inside, or things that can decompose like sticks or leaves you don't put inside, or sharp objects, weapons you don't put inside. So that's where we start. So orienteering, basics of geocaching, like what is a cache, and then we talk about some principles like not hiking on trails that you're not supposed to go on. So some basic leave no trace principles. So here's a photo of my daughter. The other day we were going geocaching, and the fastest way to get to the cache would have been on this trail that we couldn't take. So we had to find a different way to get there. And then my other daughter, there was a place to stop and brush off your shoes to stop invasive species spreading. So for me, these are really important things that if we're teaching our kiddos to get out in nature, that we have them do it respectfully.
Great. Sounds like there's like a lot of lessons built into this, and it's not just a treasure hunt, but they're learning, like you said, how to use a trail and leave no trace and those kinds of things. I think that's really exciting. So kind of going back to the idea of using this for PE in schools.
Yeah.
What happens if your school doesn't have GPS units, or if you want to use this with like lower elementary level students, like K-2, or even, something like that? What are your suggestions for that?
Right. I think for me in that situation that I'm using it a couple different ways. One of the cool things about the state of Michigan is that they offer, through the Department of Natural Resources, they'll offer free grants for buses for teachers to go on a field trip to the forest. So I would use this as a field trip activity. So we talk about all the basics during PE class. We can even practice. Seen it done where people put little flags in the ground outside on the playground, and the students go to the flag and they practice opening the cache and trading a trinket and writing in the logbook, all in preparation for a field trip. And then just making sure that you have people who are on the field trip who have the app, so everybody can be in charge of either having it on your phone or bringing tablets if you have them out with you on the field trip. And then in small groups, I would suggest no more than 6 in a group, going to an area where you know that there are multiple geocaches. So you've checked out the area first and made sure they were all there. So that's one way to do it. Another way, something that I promote with my students here, is hosting family fitness nights. So anyway, this is a family activity, and any way you can get families involved. So have the families come to a family fitness night, set up an area where you can talk to the parents or families about geocaching, and then even have them find a geocache nearby during family fitness night. And the third way I sort of promote doing it, if you don't have access and you want to use the technology, is that a lot of times PE teachers will do like an after school club. And during your after school club, it could be something where it's an after school family club. So the families come, and then you can all either start at the school and walk off from there if you have access to geocaches nearby, or maybe every Friday after school you go meet at a different park, and you as the club leader are just showing your family is what they can do kind of on their own. So I think that's how I would use it, or that's how it can be used if you don't have access to the technology.
You know, when we think of technology, a lot of times we think of it being really expensive and inaccessible. So far, you've kind of talked about how this can be done, but how much does it actually cost?
So the geocaching app itself is free. So if you want to be for the basic app is free, and I used that for a really long time before I upgraded. If you decide to upgrade your app, then it's $29.99 for the year. And the difference on the basic app, you have access to hundreds, thousands of geocaches globally still. But when you upgrade, you get access to like premium caches. So there are a lot of different types of caches. So the very basic geocache, the little icon will show up. You navigate there, you look for the geocache, but there's other fun ones like multi-caches where you have to solve a clue. You go to an area, you solve a clue, and then go find the cache later. Some more of those specialty caches are available when you get the premium membership, but it can be free.
And do you know how much like those GPS units cost if a teacher wanted to order those?
They're pretty expensive. So I would say plan for a couple $100 per GPS unit. You don't need one for every student, which is the cool thing. So you would need one for a small group. The benefit, I would say, of having a GPS unit is I've gone geocaching before with just my phone, and I've lost, being in a really heavily wooded area, I've lost my GPS signal, and then also my batteries died. So the GPS units are really highly recommended if you're going into like a wooded area versus your phone.
So
They
one
are,
other question, I guess. So if I was using like a class set of iPads, for example, do
yeah.
those iPads have to have cellular data service in order for it to work?
Well, yes. That could be yeah, if you're using iPads, you definitely need to have service in order for them to work.
Okay, so maybe in areas where I'm thinking of like some towns have like parks that have Wi-Fi, that have
Hmm.
free Wi-Fi available. So that sounds like it might be like a better option if a teacher wanted to take their class and they had a class set of iPads,
Yeah.
or something like that. So in terms of challenges and solutions, what are your suggestions?
One of the fun things with challenges is this is a picture of a bunch of different micro caches. So if you're going to bring students out for the first time to go geocaching, these ones are really difficult to find. So when you're looking at, and I'll bring you to a screen later that shows you, there's a bunch of different sizes of geocaches. They range from micro all the way up to large geocaches. And if you're geocaching with young people, it can get discouraging if you don't find what you're looking for. So this is knowing this in advance was really important. Before I started geocaching, before I considered geocaching, I talked with a bunch of people. Some were skeptical about going to um, unknown places or saying it could be dangerous to go. And I feel like as long as you are aware of your surroundings, then you should be okay. We're not crossing busy streets. And the second piece of advice they gave me is you don't always find everything that you're looking for. So as a PE teacher, I would say if you're bringing your students on a field trip, you should go out and check where the geocaches are and make sure that they're there. One of the photos on here where I'm holding a microcache, the logbook is really soggy on the inside, so sometimes you find them and they're not really well maintained. So I think that just you going out and doing this a few times before you bring your class out is really important because you don't know what you'll find. When you find a geocache, if you have the app, you log it on your phone and you say like whether I found it or I didn't find it. And if you didn't find it, it'll eventually let the person who owns the cache know, and they're supposed to go out and maintain it. But that's not always the case. So I've stumbled upon some really gross geocaches, and I think that would be kind of a shock with your students. So
That's a
making
really
them
good.
aware that that could happen is important.
I've only gone a few times,
Mhm.
but when you mentioned like some of them are hard to find if they're small or you don't know what it is you're looking for. Like I've been to the place and I'm like, where is it? I don't know what I'm looking for, and I didn't know that the cache looked like that, and that's what I was supposed to look for. So I like your idea of planning ahead.
Since I'm here on this page, I'm going to kind of scroll through to show you the different sizes of caches, so that if you're as a teacher, like the one, my daughter is holding up one that was attached to a guardrail over a little bridge, which I didn't think was super safe, but it was a magnet behind the guardrail, which was interesting. So these are micro caches. The next size is small caches. So if you look for a micro cache, there's usually no trinket inside. If you're working with younger students, like my kids don't love finding micro caches because they know there will be no trinkets to trade. And for them, that's what motivates them. These ones are small ones, so it fits something tiny inside. There's one that we found in a little free library that was in front of a school. So it was in the front of the school property, but it was hidden really well in there. The next size are the regular geocaches. And so most geocaches have stickers on them to indicate that they're geocaches. And it sort of tells people, like, if you find this by accident, you can either play along or just put it back where you found it. These are large ones. So the green one, the big green one in the protein powder container was the first one that I ever found with them, which was really great because it was gigantic. So it wasn't hidden extremely well. It was like under a stick. These ones are the easiest to find. So if you're starting out and bringing a big group somewhere, I would recommend going to a place where they have large caches and regular caches because they're hidden. They're not too sneakily hidden, and the success rate is high. And I think that if we can start students off feeling successful, they'll be more likely to continue doing this. So I'll keep going through here. These are this is my current bag of trinkets that we bring with us. So we have some things that may look familiar. We have toe tokens in there and little Grand Valley keychains and things like that. And this is the other picture is what I referred to before. If you're using your phone or a tablet to navigate somewhere, you can see this one called Fitting It In. The difficulty level is only a 1 here, so it's pretty easy to find. The terrain is a level 1 too, so that means it's probably more accessible for all people. So there's been some that are they're right in a parking lot or something, so even they're wheelchair accessible, so they're pretty easy to get to if you're thinking about all of the students in your class. And it's a regular size, so it's pretty big, so the chance of somebody finding it is good. So honestly, if I were starting to bring a class somewhere, I would go to this cache. It's easy to find, the terrain is easy, it's pretty big, so our success rate, I think, would be pretty high.
So I guess, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Because this is all really good information.
Yeah, a couple things. I'll start with my favorite cache because this is fun. My coworker Ingrid Johnson and we were actually at a camp up in the woods. It was an outdoor ed class, so we did some geocaching there, and we found a multi-cache. And the first day we had to go to this historic site. So one of the cool things about geocaches is that they're supposed to be placed in a place where there's a purpose for you to go there. So it's like either a beautiful place or a historic place. So all of the caches are kind of neat because somebody thinks it's a special place to visit. So this multi-cache, we went to this historic site and found all our GPS coordinates that were hidden on the signs there, and we couldn't figure it out the first day. So we went back to our cabins, and the next day we're like, we need to go back and figure this out again. So we did. It was very rewarding. It was cool for us to see that we did it wrong and then to go back in and do it again. So it's something fun to talk with students about, is that you may not get it the first time, but give it another try, go back the next day. Another rewarding thing for me right now, I guess, my favorite thing is that I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and my 6-year-old is learning about cardinal directions in schools. So she now takes my phone and she is the leader. So she likes to find the apps, and it's really cool or the apps, the caches. She'll have it in my phone in her hand, and she'll say, well, Mom, I know the geocache is that way, but like there's a valley here. So do we go down the valley or do we stay on the path? And I'm like, well, what do you think we do? So it's fun for her to solve some problems. Well, Mom, we should probably stay on the trail for a while because you're not really supposed to go off the trails. I'm like, that's a good solution. So for me, I love that it's a family activity. We're getting to see different parts. We just moved to Michigan a few years ago, so we're getting to explore a lot of Michigan that we may otherwise not see because we have this bonding time together.
Right. That's great. I love how this is an opportunity for, like you said in the beginning, kids can learn these skills and these technologies in physical education, but then they can take those skills and that knowledge and, spend more quality time with their families and be more active outside of school and something that they can do, for the rest of their lives. So I just think it's really great, versatile activity that's available for a lot of different people, different abilities, age ranges, you name it, and really seems to be an accessible idea.
Absolutely. And our PE majors hide geocaches in one of their classes. So it's really fun to go find their caches and say like, hey, Rachel, we found your geocache.
I do have one question. So you mentioned these are your sample trinkets. So is it sometimes where you go and you just see what's in the cache and then you like write in it, or is it sometimes I've heard like where you can take something and then leave something? So is this what you take and then you leave it?
Yeah, so this is a really fun part of geocaching is if you open up the cache and there's something that you like in there, you're supposed to leave something of equal or greater value in there.
Okay.
So like the all parts to geocaching that I haven't quite hit, but a lot of people, once you hide a cache, they have something exciting for the first person to find it. It's an FTF, first to find. So if you're the first to find it, sometimes people leave like a huge prize. Like the Department of Natural Resources had these tokens for a bunch that they put out this summer. Some people put in like a $20 bill, somebody, or like a huge thing like that. And so if you take out the $20 bill, you are supposed to put in $20 worth of stuff. But then other times we'll go and if you open it and you don't see something that you want to trade, you just sign the logbook. Sometimes we still add to it just because it's fun to add to them still, but you don't have to leave something other than your autograph in the logbook if you don't want to. And we've done that before. Sometimes we forgot to bring our trinket bag. So we just open it up, snap a selfie,
Yeah.
sign the logbook, and continue on our way.
Cool. Thanks for the clarification on that. So is there anything else you want to share?
Again, Jess, this is my sad slide. Just to reiterate, it's a super fun activity to promote with families. You can do all of the background talking in your class. So talking about orienteering, the leave no trace, how to respect our woods. If you bring students out, please go check out the caches before you go. These were ones that we found that were disgusting and one that was stolen. Some people think that geocaches are trash because in leave no trace, you're not supposed to leave anything in the woods, but you do need permission before you place them. So even the Department of Natural Resources here in Michigan, they put out caches to promote people getting physically active and hiking. So if you see a geocache, leave it where it is. I promise that it has everybody's vetted. All of the geocaches are vetted, so you have to have permission before you decide to place one there. And they recommend if you're going to start placing caches on your own that you do at least like 25 caches before you start leaving them. I highly recommend you give it a try on your own with your friends, and then use some of the resources that I showed you earlier to start using it with even in your young elementary programs.
Thank you so much, Tess. Just for everyone listening and watching today, you can actually learn more about geocaching and other technologies that you can implement into physical education, health education, coaching, in a textbook that Tess and I co-authored with Seth Jenny called Technology for Physical Educators, Health Educators, and Coaches, and it's available through Human Kinetics. So thank you so much, Tess.
Thank you.